Hello everyone, my name is Jack Scanlon and I will be presenting on U.S. foreign assistance, the trends and analysis. First I'm going to go to the data overview, and this data is from foreignassistance.gov. I was given a spreadsheet that contained all foreign assistance money spent from 2004 to 2014. This data was then collected by foreignassistance.gov, and it was collected from over 20 government agencies. I believe that this is a reliable source and method of collecting data. The reason foreignassistance.gov was created was in response to the principles of the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness and the President's Open Government Initiative. The website is frequently updated as new data comes in. I honestly, as of right now, do not think that there are any biases in this data, but this could change as I go on with my slideshow. The website was provided to make foreign spending more transparent, and I think it does just that. It is really nice to be able to see foreign aid, what the government is spending money on. Everyone talks about a budget, and things like that, but it's good to see concrete numbers. The foreignassistance.gov website was initiated by the Department of State and USAID under the policy guidance of the National Security Council. I can understand someone who is skeptical of the government might want to think that the data is under-exaggerated, that we actually spend more on foreign aid. And one might also think that the government hides certain spending habits on sectors or countries that they do not want us to know. So we'll explore this a little bit as I go through the presentation. So what's the relevant information? So as you see, first we have the fiscal year. This is 2014. Like I said earlier, it goes from 2004 to 2014. Then we have the agency name. The Treasury, the USAID, then the benefiting countries. There are worldwide programs, and then there are individual country programs like Afghanistan, Kenya, South Africa, Jordan. Then the category. So this is what the money was actually spent on. Multi-sector, program management, health, and I'll go a little bit into what those mean later on. The sector is basically just a subcategory, and like international contributions, some money, health money, that's HIV and AIDS, humanitarian assistance, protection assistance and solutions, and then finally the amount. So this is the amount spent on each category. First, I just want to look at the overall spending from 2004 to 2014. So you can see in this graph, 2004 and 2005 were extremely low amounts of money spent. It's both the years are less than $1 billion spent. You see the biggest rise going from 2005 to 2006. I'll be explaining that in the next slide. Then you see the peak years of 2011, 2012, 2013, where close to $30 billion was spent. So the first major trend, I want to talk a little bit about the macro analysis part of this. And the first major trend is the spending increase from 2005 to 2006. There are a few different options I could take. I wanted to keep this relatively simple, and there were three worksheets that were part of the spreadsheet, and they were planned, obligated, and spent. I decided to spend time on the spent, because I believe that that's kind of the most relevant, because that's what's already happened, and they're concrete numbers. So it's in the past. And I wanted to keep my analysis very simple and straightforward. After cleaning the data, I decided that, like I said, it'd be best to analyze just the spent worksheet. So as you can see, I made a pivot table. After looking at some of the overall trends, the one I wanted to focus on that I discovered in my data was that there was a huge increase from 2005 to 2006. You can see this right here. This is 39,232,390 and $390.30. 2006, 2,472,180. Sorry, 2,472,180,190.14. It's a huge number. I mean, it's even hard to pronounce. So I thought, why is it so? When I digged a little deeper, I did a little math. I found out that the spending increased over 6,000% during this time. So I wanted to go further, and like I said, it helped with the pivot table, and I found out that I found out what the major categories of spending were in 2006 and 2007. And the largest increase in categories of spending during this time was in economic development, as you can see here, and multi-sector. So economic development includes agriculture, financial sector, infrastructure, macroeconomic foundation for growth, and private sector competitiveness. And multi-sector spending included international contributions and unspecified. So I don't really know exactly what both of these mean. I looked on the website, foreignassistance.gov, and it didn't really give me any other information about what those two kind of subcategories meant, what those two sectors meant. And yeah, I just thought it was a little interesting because the point of this was to be transparent, and as you can see with those two sectors, that is not very transparent at all. What does international contributions mean, and what does unspecified mean? So yeah, I did a little outside research, and I found out that the reason there was such large increase was primarily due to debt relief for Iraq and Nigeria and emergency aid to the Indian Ocean tsunami hit countries. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty interesting. I'm gonna go to my next major trend. For the other overarching trend that I noticed was that spending peaked from 2011 to 2013. As you can see, what are the two biggest categories were health. Yeah, it was mostly health, and then peace and security, really. And I did some research on this and found out that the crisis, such as the Ebola outbreak in West Africa and mass displacement in Central African Republic, South Sudan, and Syria, triggered a large rise in foreign spending. And that's why really Ebola. I mean, you heard about it all over the news, and that's why. I mean, health. I mean, in 2013, over $8 billion alone was spent on health, which is just a huge number. Now I want to jump to my microanalysis. So after finding out the major trends in the data, I decided to dig a little deeper, and I was able to see the peak spending years of 2011 to 2013. Now I wanted to look at the drop-off in 2014. So I decided to look at really one subcategory in particular. I looked at stabilization operations and security sector reform, because really I'm intrigued by the United States' long history of becoming involved in other government affairs. And there have been many instances where the U.S. was successful in influencing foreign governments. There have also been many times the U.S. has been very unsuccessful and destabilized a country based on its own self-interest. I really like history, so this just kind of made a lot of sense to me to dig back. So I found that in 2014, Afghanistan and Colombia received the most aid in terms of stabilization operations and security reform. And you can see that Afghanistan right here received almost $2 billion, and Colombia received just about $6 billion. So why would the U.S. want these two countries to maintain top security and reform? Well, there are a couple of reasons. Both countries traffic high volumes of drugs into the United States, especially cocaine. And it is in the best interest of the U.S. to stem this volume of drugs by having a stable and cooperative government in each country. The U.S. also has financial interests in both countries. In Afghanistan, the U.S. spent over a decade there, spent billions of dollars fighting terrorists in that area of the world and trying to stabilize that area. And the hope was that, stabilizing Afghanistan and Iraq, but right now focus on Afghanistan, would, create stability throughout the entire region. The U.S. is still fighting the Taliban and Al Qaeda in Afghanistan to this day, and in other countries. And this is really why, and you see Colombia, you hear news, they're signing a peace, they just signed a peace treaty with the FARC rebels. And I think the U.S. has been giving them a lot of money to kind of deal with that and deal with their own civil war that's been going on. They're actually the longest civil war, active civil war ever. And it seems like the U.S. has been successful in both of these countries. For the most part, Afghanistan is a lot better than what it was when we went in there. And Colombia is doing well. They just signed a peace treaty, and their economy is doing pretty well. So, what does all this mean? I just want to conclude. So first off, I just want to give a little summary. First off, I found it extremely interesting at the amount of money the U.S. has spent on foreign aid and the amount of countries the U.S. gives money to. We are the largest donor of foreign aid out of any country in the world. I was also intrigued as to what categories the money was being spent on. I honestly thought that the U.S. would be spending much more money on stabilization efforts, but they weren't. Even though in Colombia and Afghanistan in 2014, they spent a lot of money. But to summarize my analysis, just summarize my analysis. Sorry, I first looked at overall spending. I looked at the large increase in spending from 05 to 06. And I took this a step further and looked at the peak years of spending from 2011 to 2013. I then analyzed what kind of categories the money was actually going towards. I found out that most of the money was being spent on health. This made sense because of the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. And I then looked at 2014 data and analyzed the money that was spent on stabilization efforts. The biggest thing I learned and that I can take away from this data was that U.S. foreign assistance can be directly tied to what is going on in the world at any given time period. And current events can impact foreign assistance in a very dramatic way. Money changes, depending on where it is needed most in the world. If a tsunami hits, there's going to be foreign aid going to the tsunami. If there's governments in turmoil like we see nowadays, especially in the Middle East and in Africa, a lot of money is going towards that. And I think the U.S. does this because they want to help, but I also believe that the U.S. protects their own interests and protects the investments that they have in these countries. So I think it's definitely the amount of money that the U.S. gives is also a political move as well as a helping move. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you learned something from it. I certainly did, and thank you for your time.